Welcome in to this week's edition of the High School OT postgame show. Evan Moesta here with you from the High School OT studios in Raleigh. The penultimate week of the regular season across the state of North Carolina is upon us. Games are starting to go final here in week 10, and there has been a ton of action tonight. Tons of upsets, tons of huge scores, tons of shocking results across the state of North Carolina to get to. Let's jump right in to the top 25 scores from around North Carolina. Let's start with top-ranked Grimsley, the Whirlies. They are leading Dudley right now. That is a matchup in Guilford County between two crosstown foes who have not played in a really long time. Right now, the Whirlies, it was a close game, but they've broken away to take a 35-14 lead in the fourth quarter. Providence Day, they scored 26 unanswered tonight and defeat Charlotte Christian 46-20. The Chargers remain unbeaten. Huff, how about this? Huff is leading Myers Park tonight in a top 10 matchup with 9 minutes and 37 seconds left. They were leading 7-6. The Huskies scored 21 points in the final 9 minutes to win that one 28-6. West Charlotte shuts out Chambers tonight 37-0. Weddington shutting out Piedmont 49-0. Millbrook shutting out Wakefield 55-0. More top 25 scores on the Talk It Out NC statewide scoreboard. Cardinal Gibbons a 71-13 win over Sanderson. Hoggard defeating North Brunswick 35-13. Independent shutting out North Meck 41-0. Watauga defeating McDowell. We're still looking for a score from that Mallard Creek Butler game. If you have it, you can go on HighSchoolOT.com right now, hit the report scores button, and submit that to the Talk It Out NC scoreboard. Ashbrook, they just went final against Crest. The Ashbrook wins 21-14. They make a defensive stand to hold the Chargers out of the end zone and come away with a big victory there. More top 25 scores. Jordan shutting out Green Level 62-0. Jacksonville defeating D.H. Conley 41-24. East Lincoln a big win over Maiden. That was back and forth for quite some time. The Mustangs pull out the two-score victory. Tarboro shutting out Aiden Grifton 41-0. Northern Nash defeating Southern 34-21. That sets up a big game next week against Hunt. Brevard defeating Tuscola tonight 36-3. More top 25 scores. Northern Guilford defeats Eastern Guilford 34-14. And how about this one? Number 25 Reagan gets shut out 35-0 tonight by West Forsyth. I had mentioned we were looking for that Mallard Creek score. That game is actually final. Mallard Creek defeats Butler 44-22, and we welcome you back in here to the High School OT studios. There are lots of tons of fun games. I mentioned there were some thrilling finishes. Ashbrook just got the game-winning defensive stop against Crest. Well, out in Raleigh in the Cap 8 conference, Enloe, they picked up a really big victory tonight as well. They defeat Corinth Holders, and it took a defensive stand by the Eagles and a game-winning interception from Alexander Chapman Evans, and he joins us now here on the High School OT postgame show. Congratulations on the big win, and talk me through that last play there, coming away, getting the win for your team, and in a big conference win for you guys. What's kind of going through your mind on that last play and just seeing the ball right there and making the game-winning interception?
Thank you again. Going through that last play, it was like it's senior night. It was like leave it all on the field, and yeah, I got it done. I read the quarterback, seen the ball, grabbed it, and just ran, took off, didn't stop, didn't look back.
You guys have had a lot of big moments this season. Obviously, you mentioned it's your senior night. For you guys watching who may not know, Alexander is a great multi-sport athlete at Enloe as well. So when he gets that interception, I don't think there was a doubt that he was going to be able to house it there. But what has being a part of this program at Enloe meant to you, and how important was it there on your home field, on your senior night, to have that memorable moment?
Being a part of Enloe is big, man. It's a big family. We're all together. We're all playing together. We're all fighting for one thing: go to playoffs, show out. We're the underdogs in this situation. You feel me? Nobody was counting on us. Everybody's doubting on us. So we want to prove them wrong and show them that Enloe can put up a fight.
Well, it's a big win for you guys tonight. Again,
Yes, sir.
28-22. Enloe defeats Corinth Holders on its senior night. And that guy right there, Alexander Chapman Evans, the game-winning interception. And wins the game for the Eagles tonight. Congratulations on the victory and best of luck next week. And then if you guys get into those playoffs in 8A, make some noise, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having
Awesome.
me.
Thank you. Congratulations. We move on here on the High School OT postgame show. I'm going to bring in Joel Bryant now to the show. Joel, you've been monitoring some of these games across the state. It has been a wild night. There have been lots of OMG moments as we've been seeing scores go final or plays develop during games. What has stood out to you so far? I know right before we went on, you were telling me about the end of that Ashbrook Crest game. Grimsley has began to pull away in its game against Dudley.
I do
Uh,
a final on that. Grimsley defeats Dudley 42-14 for
42-14.
JC Zimble well, I don't know where he's at now. I guess he's with On3 now. He's JC Zimble. Everyone knows who he is. But Grimsley wins 42-14 over Dudley.
Huge win there for the Whirlies. What stood out to you, though, tonight?
Yeah, I think we're going to hear from Joe Hughes later, but that Ashbrook Crest game, arguably the best team in 6A versus the best team in 5A in that Big South Conference. Ashbrook wins with the goal line stand on the 1 yard line, wins 21-14. Crest was up early. Ashbrook had a big third quarter and came back and took a lead there and held on to it in the fourth quarter. So hopefully we get Joe Hughes on here. I know he's going to be busy. Tell us all about that one. But yeah, that I think that further solidifies Ashbrook as a major threat in 6A.
Yeah, I mean, there's some games starting to go final just now, but we also have Bryant Roach potentially getting on the show tonight to talk that Grimsley game as well. Should be some exciting ones. Joel, I'm going to let you go for just a minute. We were talking to Alexander Chapman Evans over at Enloe. We're going to stay in that conference, and we're going to bring in Jonas Pope to the show now. He had another big game out in the Cap. He had Rollsville and Leesville. Jonas, this game was really for that second spot in that conference, and it felt like it was a really good clash of, a well-disciplined Leesville team and a very talented Rollsville team, and in the end, the Rams pull out a 2010 victory.
Yeah, it was a defensive heavyweight bout in the first quarter. Both teams just trying to feel each other out, throwing their jabs, trying to get a feel for what was going on. This is a team. Both teams came in high-scoring offenses. I think Roseville came in averaging 60-some points in the last 3 games, and Leesville averaged 42 in their last 2 games. And it was 0-0 after the first quarter. And I think that's a big shout-out to Roseville's defense, which you hear so much about, but also Leesville's defense for the job they did in the first quarter to kind of keep Roseville off the scoreboard. But then in the second quarter, special teams, Marquise Bryant and that defense kind of got going. He had a toe tap on the sideline interception. They kind of sparked that side of the ball.
Oh, wow.
And that defense kind of rose to the challenge the rest of the way. And that was the story of the game. I mean, Leesville couldn't move the ball, and Roseville did enough flipping the field to get some pretty good field position to get some scores to kind of pull away.
Yeah, I felt like going into this game, I think the size and kind of the physicality of Leesville's defense, was going to present some issues for Rollsville, but it felt like some of Rollsville's playmakers stepped up when it mattered the most. Where do you think what's the temperature on where Rollsville's at now? Because obviously it challenged itself early in the year. It had the setback against Millbrook right at the start of conference play, but now they've got some comfortable wins under its belt. Now they get a really important win over the Pride under their belt, and they're 2 weeks out from the playoffs, 2-3 weeks out, depending on how buys work and where everybody gets seated.
Yep.
But it feels like if you're Coach Rackley and the Rams, this is that momentum that you want at this time of the year.
It's funny you asked that because about the temperature of the team. So the first quarter, I'm on their side of the field, I'm on the sideline. I wanted to ask some of the coaches I know, what's wrong with y'all? Why? What's going on? Y'all not scoring? Y'all letting Leesville kind of hang around? But as the game went along, that defensive side of the ball kind of kept them in the game and kind of led the way. So when your defense is playing that well, I guess this time of the year, then you should have no issues or concerns at all because we all know defense wins championships, and that defense is playing at the elite level. So if I was Rack, I would feel good about that. Offensively, I would have some concerns once you got deeper in the playoffs and play some better teams. Something to keep an eye on. Amir Brown went down in the fourth quarter, didn't return.
Oh, wow.
They had a freshman running back who got in though and made some big gain and kind of kept the clock moving. So that was good to see, but kind of something to keep your eye on in the next couple of weeks. They probably won't need them much next week and kind of watch it. Something to watch early in the playoffs. But again, going back to that side of the ball, when the defense is playing at the level that they play tonight, then that's make you feel pretty good if you're Coach Rack.
A big win tonight for Rollsville, 20-10. The Rams defeat the Pride. You can see Jonas's story up tonight on highschoolot.com. We'll have a photo gallery from that one as well. Thanks, Jonas.
Appreciate it, man.
Move on here on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we will join J. Mike Blake, who was on the call tonight of the High School OT Game of the Week, presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken.
Raising kids is a roller coaster. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, but most times you wonder how your kid turned out so well. That's how. You did the hard work, made the right decisions, like talking about alcohol before it could be a problem. Go to talkitoutnc.org. Get resources on how to talk about underage drinking. So Mom, Dad, keep up the good work. It's worth it. Talk early. Talk often. Talk it out, NC.
Welcome back to the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Remember, visit talkitoutnc.org. Again, talkitoutnc.org, and you can get tools and resources that you need to start the conversation today to help stop underage drinking. I bring in High School OT's J. Mike Blake to the postgame show now. He was on the call tonight out in Sanford at Lee County High School, where Union Pines picked up a big win in the High School OT Game of the Week, presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. J. Mike, if I could play licensed music on the postgame show, I might play Barbra Streisand's The Way We Were, because that was the #1 song in the country last time Union Pines was a conference champion. And that is until tonight. What happened to allow the Vikings to pick up an emphatic conference championship clinching victory?
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, like we're talking about David Thompson leading NC State to the national championship earlier that year, right? 1974, when Union Pines last won a conference championship. And I said it a lot on the conference on the broadcast tonight, because very early we kind of knew this is what was happening. They really made it a one-sided affair. I think Lee County kind of started out a little rusty, a little flat, and Union Pines they put their foot down on the gas somewhere around first drive of the second half, a two play 70-yard drive, and from there on they just never looked back. One thing that really impressed me. So for those who don't know, like I grew up in kind of this corridor, North Carolina. I went to Western Harnett High School. Union Pines is across the county line in one direction, and across another county line is Lee County. So I've known about Union Pines and the history of it. You know, I went to church with Union Pines kids. They have not been good in football hardly ever in their history. And in recent years, they've gotten to be like a playoff team, 6 wins here, maybe a 7-win season mixed in. So for me, it was really cool to be there to see Union Pines wrap up a conference championship, and they're 8-1, and they're playing Western Harnett next week, which should be an easy win for Union Pines. They'll be 9-1 at the end of the regular season, which is just amazing for that community, amazing for the school history part of it, amazing for Coach Bryant Till. I mean, this is his second year there, and he's found a community that's bought into what he preaches. And tonight you saw a tough football team. I mean, I think that was the biggest takeaway. It's not like Union Pines all of a sudden has kids that run 4.4s, or the kids that say they run 4.4s, which are a lot more common than the kids actually do. They don't have those kind of playmakers, but what they do have is a lot of guys that will absolutely knock the crap out of you if you come up into the hole not ready to be, not bracing for impact. They are guys flying on special teams to deliver big hits, and not necessarily on a ball carrier, but on anyone else trying to block them. This was a tough football team. It was only 14-3 at halftime, and then 21 points in the third quarter. And here comes the running clock later in the fourth. And like, what a statement. Lee County could still be a top 3, top 4 team in the conference, but the gap that was out there tonight between them and the Vikings was really something that impressed me. Just not just because of the significance of 1974, but also just of how this program has a new look and a new feel to it. And they are rolling right now in year 2 under Coach Bryant Till.
I thought it was really cool at the end of the game. They give Coach Till the Gatorade bath at the end. And I also think you made a point here. This is his second year at Union Pines, and how much the program and the community has rallied around him and how much they love him. Bryant Till left Richmond and took this job at Union Pines. Richmond promotes Brad Denson there, and they found instant success as well, where the program and the community rallied around him at Richmond. Very rarely do you almost see coaching changes like that work out so well for both programs. Both are finding so much success. You talked to Coach Till after the game. What I'm sure he hasn't processed the extent of being a conference champion, what it truly means for the people of Carthage and Union Pines, but how does he feel about what has transpired up until this point, where again they're a one-loss program going into the final week of the season?
Yeah, what he said, and by the way, that one loss, that's to an 8A Pinecrest team only by 5. And again, even that, Union Pines for years had this rivalry with Pinecrest where they're about half the size of Pinecrest and they don't like each other. But in football, if you are twice the size of your opponent, you're probably going to win that contest every year easily. So Pinecrest actually rolled in this series. So only a 5-point game this year is a huge testament. What he talked about was how this community is so military influenced. A lot of special forces guys that will now drive down Highway 690 into Fort Bragg. These people like really wanted to be part of something special in football because it's a heavy military area now. And he's got people in his family who are military. And I got to say, as growing up in that area, it was not nearly as military, at least the Moore County side of Fort Bragg was not really as military influenced back 20 years ago as it is today. So what he's found is a community that's willing to buy in, put in the work. What do you need? Like super welcoming. How can we make this work? And so he's found kids that just are buying into everything he's putting down. And I mean, you see it. The front four, I thought tonight were terrific for Union Pines. Yes, there was a 100-yard rusher on the other side, but Brandon Baldwin had to work for those yards. He had a few carries of 20 here and there, and then everything else. When they needed to stop on third down, they made that stop. He slammed it to the line. There was nowhere to go. But again, the toughness, the fighting for extra yards. They have a dude in Hayne Tobias.
Yes, they do.
Joel
Bryant told me about him, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I was there for a little bit tonight to catch the first quarter. Yeah, he's a guy. He can definitely play at the next level.
He kind of epitomized it on the offensive end, where there's just a bunch of guys laying their bodies out there on the defensive end
and special teams.
Yes, and special teams. Hayne Tobias had a touchdown was called back where you just knew he was wrapped up, and then he just throws everyone to the turf, fights for a few more yards. And both running backs tonight, Adrian Cohen fighting through that first contact. The first guy never brings him down. Back up Tyler Thomas, his touchdown run. I really thought he was stopped. I looked down to kind of make sure I had the stat right, look up, and he is just all of a sudden the 3 guys who were holding him up didn't stop his forward progress. He kept the legs turning and go forward. And those were the kind of plays that show you why Union Pines is in this position. It's an attitude thing, as old school as it is. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that Coach Till has done with the offseason workouts and getting those guys to be the best versions of themselves athletically. There's such a mindset shift. If you looked at this team, you would never think that this is a program that historically struggles. You would think like these guys expect to be here. That was what the body language said tonight. And that's what the scoreboard said too, 42-3.
That was J. Mike Blake. He was on the call tonight of the High School OT Game of the Week presented by Alpaca Peruvian Chicken. Union Pines winning its first conference title since 1974, a 42-3 win over Lee County. J. Mike, I would say go party like it's 1974, but I actually need you to get some sleep because tomorrow's a big day. J. Mike's going to be your guy for NCISA state championships. Between that and NCHSA girls tennis, there's 17 state championships going on tomorrow. And 4th round volleyball.
We've only had 8 or 10 so far this week. So
only 10 so far. 17 tomorrow. And J Mike's going to be right at the center of all of that. So follow him on Twitter, JMB Preps, and then HighSchoolOT.com. You'll have all of that state championship coverage there. Thanks, J Mike.
No problem.
Actually, I'm going to bring in Joel Bryant here real quick. What do you have to add?
Hey, quick final score for us. Mallard Creek beats Butler 44-22. That was one of the top 25 scores we were missing there.
Yep. Big win there for Mallard Creek. Yep, big win for Mallard Creek in the MEC Power 6. Some other top 25 scores that it stood out. We talked about Reagan, who has been hot Reagan's been up and down. We've talked to Logan Carter, who's joining us now on the High School OT postgame show. Logan, when we last spoke about the Raiders, we were talking about how they have had some peaks and valleys this season, but of late, it's been more peaks. They've had good energy. They've been a stock riser recently and made it up to 25 in our statewide rankings, but tonight they run into a buzzsaw in West Forsyth, who left, no doubt, 35-0.
Yeah, so it was – I texted Joel at halftime. It was basically what we had discussed on the previous, time that I had covered Reagan. We knew with John Evans Jr. and with Moses Morris on each side, the defenses were going to stack the box and make you throw. And, we assumed that it was going to be Jacob Smith and them, excelling in that category, but it really was Haynes Robitzer tonight. He took the top off the defense and had 2 long passing touchdowns, one to Jalen Moore and one to Braylon Morrow. And I think that was just the nail in the coffin for Reagan. They went up. I think Moses Morris had a touchdown then as well. They went up 21-0. And then Moses Morris, he capped off the night with 2 more rushing touchdowns just at the 1-yard line. Nothing too special, but still, it was shocking. And I think Reagan was shell-shocked, and that kind of led to the blowout because they just scored really quick through the air with Haynes throwing those 2 beautiful touchdown passes. And I think that really kind of shocked them and shocked everybody in attendance tonight. But kudos to Wallace, kudos to the defense. They played a spectacular game tonight for West. And I think it's a testament to, they're 7-2. I know Joel was at the Grimsley West game. They were right there in it. And I know there was a controversial touchdown in that one. And that game would have been a lot closer. And then their loss to Richmond, I watched, the highlights of that. And that they were right there in that one too. They kind of costed that game themselves. So they could be undefeated. They're that kind of team. And I think they are picking up at the right time before playoffs and might make a deep run after watching them tonight.
Yeah, Joel and I were talking in the office today. I'll bring in Joel in just a second here. West is on the doorstep now of claiming the CPC, and they've always been in that mix year in and year out, but typically in the end it's been East that has won out in that league. How big of a win is this just for the program, for Coach Wallace and the Titans?
Yeah, this is huge, and I think a lot of plays after that East-West game, East is definitely going to be hurt. After, they were hoping to get a shot at Reagan next week for maybe a 3-way tie. This is a great win for Walt. That win against East Forsyth, it was on TV locally here, went into overtime. Their back was up against the wall. That was a huge win for Coach Wallace. And I think walking away from that game, I was like, man, if they can show up and play the same way they did tonight against East, against Reagan, they definitely have a shot. And I think Coach Wallace and all that coaching staff, I know a lot of the guys, Coach Ferg, who does the running backs, I mean, year in and year out, they've always had a dominant running back over at West Forsyth. It's just such a testament to all of those guys that have been buying in since Wallace got the job. And it's just unbelievable to see them, I knew they could win, but not in this fashion tonight. And I think that just shows this team is right on the verge of being a deep playoff team. And Wallace, he's a fantastic coach. We saw what he did at Northwest Guilford, and that's why West brought him over after Adrian Snow retired. So it's awesome to see. Coach Wallace is a great guy as well. So, kudos to him, and all the love goes to him and that staff.
Logan, for West Forsyth, I think last time they won a conference outright was in 2017. Does that sound right to you? Under Coach Snow.
Yeah.
When you start thinking about them in terms of these 8A teams are going to have to face, Huff and Myers Park and West Charlotte, just how do you think they stack up after seeing them tonight, probably in their best version of the season so far?
Yeah, definitely the best version I've seen from them all season long. And I think they did play pretty tough in that Grimsley game as well against a really, tough opponent.
They did.
And so I think that's how it's going to be, right? You said, if they can perform at that level, they can definitely be at that level with Huff and Myers Park and those guys. And I think it definitely was the incorporation of the passing game big time tonight. Reagan was expecting Moses Morris was going to get all these touches, and they took the top off the defense with Haynes throwing those 2 long touchdown passes. So I think if they can really get him going to complement that run game, they could definitely upset somebody that we would be shocked to see.
Do you have an idea where you want to go next week?
No, I think I want to go somewhere fun now because now
Okay.
that
We'll take a look at it.
I know I was kind of like saying, man, do I really want to go to Reagan and East? Like I want to get out of the CPC before playoffs. So I think wherever the weather takes me next week, I'll be happy.
All right. Well, Logan, always appreciate it. Thanks for coming on here a little bit earlier than you used to tonight. Big win for
I have
West
to
Forsyth.
say, I definitely appreciate West Forsyth. After last week's game, getting home at 11:30, I really appreciate
Logan's
it.
had some long games this year, so we're getting them
I
out
really
early tonight.
appreciate West Forsyth tonight.
Logan, really appreciate it. We're going to take a quick commercial break here, and we'll be back with Leica BB.
Don't fall for the myths. Get the facts about underage drinking.
Myth: teens bounce back fast and teenage athletes can perform just fine after a night of drinking alcohol. The fact is, alcohol can hinder athletic performance for up to 3 days, delaying recovery and causing long-term issues with muscle loss and weakness. But don't just take it from me.
Choosing not to drink as an underage athlete has really helped me significantly. I've been able to focus, keep my priorities straight, and it's helped me separate myself from, many other people.
Get more facts at talkitoutnc.org.
Welcome back to the HighSchoolOT postgame show. Leica BB was at a big game for Tarboro in the Eastern Plains 2A, 3A conference. They shut out Aiden Griffin, who I think was probably going to be their best challenger this year, Leica. So Tarboro, here's the thing. Tarboro, for the first time, they've joined this Eastern Plains 2A, 3A conference. They're the smallest team in this conference. It's kind of a new era for them. They're not really used to being the smallest team in the conference, and it doesn't really look like it. They've just been churning through everybody. Tonight, Leica, impressive win over Aiden Griffin. Tell us all about it.
It was certainly an impressive performance from Tarboro. Aiden Griffin made them work, especially defensively. They forced a couple of stops early against obviously a vaunted Tarboro T. Tarboro really had to scratch and claw for their 2 touchdowns in the first half, but when the second half started, it was full speed ahead for the Vikings, and they just continued to take care of business against a very good AG squad.
So Tarboro locks up a co-conference championship at least. They'll play Kinston next week. Kinston looked good tonight against Beddingfield. Is there anything that kind of you think that Tarboro wants to work on this week? I know it seems so dominant, but is there anything you think is going to be grinding at Coach Crack's gears after this game?
Well, I'm sure he'll be very impressed with how special teams performed. They punted twice, but both punts were down inside the 2-yard line, and then their defense were able to force punts to get them good field position on offense. If there's one thing I'll say, early in the game, Coach Wingate's offense from Aiden Griffin, John Fields was finding Nigel Morgan early. Short passing game was working, and they had a promising drive early in the second quarter, I want to say, that was stalled out by Caden Everett interception, and really just all around in all facets, Tarboro really dominated, especially in the second half.
So, Leica, it's been a kind of a crazy season in Eastern North Carolina and Northeastern North Carolina. Some crazy results tonight. I do want to get your thoughts on them before we go here. So, Northeastern beats Martin County 14-13. Martin County led most of that game. So that's now I think a 3-way tie. That Northeastern Coastal 3A, 4A, 5A conference. And then the Albemarle 2A, Holmes with a big win over Perquimans. Holmes is looking like they're going to wrap up that conference there. Let's talk about that Northeastern 5As, or sorry, I can never get this right. So 3A, 4A, 5A. We got 3 classifications now. It's hard to keep track of. What do you think's going to happen there with a 3-way tie between Northeastern, Martin, and Currituck?
In a word, chaos. That's all we can say about this NCC conference. Northeastern needed multiple rushing touchdowns for Jalen Mallory to pull that one out at Martin County. And you also forgot to mention Currituck also escaped tonight too. They won 34-33 over Pasquotank, who's been in a very improved program up there as well.
Really? Okay. Another 1-point win.
1-point game for Currituck. So now, as you mentioned, 3-way tie at the top. Currituck beat Northeastern, who beat Martin County tonight. And Martin County, nothing last week, beat Currituck. So it comes down to next week. If I'm not mistaken, it's the all P-Tank County rivalry game at Pasquotank between them and Northeastern. If I'm not mistaken, I think Currituck should be playing First Flight. If I'm not mistaken, that should be a Thursday game. And Martin County should be at Hereford County, who, if with a good game, Hereford County could make some noise. So anything.
Yeah, they've had some nice wins this year.
Anything goes really in this conference, and it's not how I thought we would arrive here with now 1 week left in the regular season, but it's going to come down to it.
Some other scores before you go here, I want to go through with you. West Craven beats Southwest Edgecombe 44-19. Big win for West Craven. They clinched a co-conference championship there. Do they play Eastern Wayne next week? Is that what's happening next week?
Yes, sir, they do.
Yeah.
That is that's the last game of the regular season. It should be.
Yes, it should be. Yeah, that'll be a conference championship there.
Eastern Wayne had a bit of a struggle with Washington tonight too.
Eastern Wayne won that in a blowout. Eastern Wayne won 49-6. Yeah.
Early, but
So that West Craven Eastern Wayne game, watch out for that one next week. Out there in 252. Well, Leica, appreciate your time here. I want you to get some sleep because we have a busy weekend with volleyball coverage. It's gonna be a busy day tomorrow, and we're gonna see more from you on Tuesday, then also next week in football. So, Leica, appreciate your time, and we're going to go to another quick break here on the Talk Out NC postgame show.
Raising kids is a roller coaster. Sometimes you laugh, sometimes you cry, but most times you wonder how your kid turned out so well. That's how. You did the hard work, made the right decisions, like talking about alcohol before it could be a problem. Go to talkitoutnc.org. Get resources on how to talk about underage drinking. So Mom, Dad, keep up the good work. It's worth it. Talk early. Talk often. Talk it out, NC.
Welcome back to the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Just a reminder now that fall is here, right in the thick of fall now in October. Time is running out for the Talk It Out NC fall giveaway. Now through November, start the conversation and enter for your chance to win. 6 lucky winners will get a $250 grocery gift card. All you have to do is visit talkitoutnc.org. Again, that's talkitoutnc.org. Submit your entry, and while you are there, share what's on your mind at the dinner table. You can also tag Talk It Out NC on social media, and you can share healthy recipes that you feed your athlete, or maybe even like a short video of you cooking and other ways that you help spark the conversation at mealtime. Talk It Out NC's mission is to reduce underage drinking by fostering open, honest, and ongoing conversations between adults and young people. Don't wait. Enter today and make every meal a moment by starting the conversation. We carry on here on the High School OT postgame show and welcome in Jeff Lincoln, David Jones from Scoreboard Radio. Guys, the theme of Week 10 has been chaos. How did your game go tonight?
Well, we're not sure. We're at a poker game at Chauncey Billups' house right now, trying to our game was chaos, but it was one-sided chaos. 48-2, St. Stephen's over South Caldwell. The only point for the Spartans, a bad snap from the one over the quarterback's head gave the Spartan defense a safety. Story in this one was 6 South Caldwell turnovers, 4 interceptions, 4 or 5? 5 interceptions, 1 recovered fumble. Corbin McGinnis, who's a pretty good quarterback for South Caldwell, knocked out late in the first half. St. Stephen's was just far more athletic in the trenches. Izzy Payne, the talented sophomore, 2 rushing touchdowns. St. Stephen's quarterback Ryland Milligan had a touchdown pass that he threw underhanded about 18 inches that went 30 yards to Josiah Brown. And then Milligan also had 2 rushing touchdowns of 69 and 63 yards. It was just really all Indians in this one. Not a lot of good things to say for South Caldwell in this one. They finish up at Alexander Central next week. And St. Stephen's really the surprise team in this conference. They're tied in the standings in second place with Freedom. The Patriots hold the tiebreaker, but really a good year for St. Stephen's. Traditionally a team that doesn't do great in football, going to be in the playoffs for the first time in a decade, it looks like.
Yeah, you mentioned Freedom and Alexander Central. Freedom winning tonight 42-0 there. Some other intriguing scores. We were tracking it in the office, and we weren't sure the complete validity of it, but was East Burke up on East Rutherford at one point late?
Yeah,
or second half?
Yeah, 24-14 at one point, 24-20, I believe, at the half, and then East Rutherford comes out in the second half. They end up winning tonight, 53-24. East Burke's an improved team as well too. The game against RS Central a couple of weeks ago had a couple of drop passes that, if you catch them, may have turned into touchdowns, but they didn't. So East Burke's in there at 3-6, 3-3, but looking to get back into the playoffs. Sorry, Dino. He's a Cavalier fan. A little bit upset about that. But it's I think when you look at that conference, RS Central, they win tonight over West Caldwell. That score was a little bit closer than what we thought, 36-22. RS Central gets the victory that they moved to 5-1 in the conference. But I'm interested to see a couple of these teams that have had some long playoff streaks are going to get droughts, are going to get overturned. East Burke is one of those teams. They've not been in the playoffs in a while. We talked about St. Stephen's. They've not been in the playoffs since 2015. They win tonight to get their fifth win, first time since 2019. So a couple of these teams in our area that aren't used to getting into the playoffs are finally going to get a taste of the playoffs with that new format. And I think that's good. I think we talked to tonight at halftime. Our guest was St. Stephen's men's basketball coach Patrick Smith, and he was just talking about how that's going to bleed into other sports and get you excited in football if they're in the playoffs, and then you can carry that over into basketball, and maybe that carries over into baseball season in the spring. So there's a little bit of excitement. David and I were talking about this on the way home tonight, though. In our area, Freedom's pretty good. Highbright is pretty good. Watauga is really extraordinary. Good. But outside of that, there's just not really – there's a lot of okay football teams, but just not really anybody that's you can pin
very
your hat
top
on.
heavy.
Yeah,
very top
that's going to make a deep run to the playoffs. We think Watauga will from our area. We think Hickory will. Freedom has that potential depending on their speed, and the same thing with Highbright. But really in our area, some of the teams that have had great seasons before, North Lincoln is down this season. Maiden lost again tonight. So there's some teams that are a little bit down that you're used to seeing up towards the top of the standings.
Yeah, Watauga, we mentioned their score earlier in the show. Highbrighton 62-0 over Patton tonight. Another intriguing score, Bandy's West Iredell, and those are some programs that you mentioned. It could do wonders to, get a playoff game or two under its belt. Bandy's tonight, though, 36-32, a close one with West Iredell. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, scored 15 points late in that one. That was a 32-21 game in the fourth quarter, the report that we had. So Bandy's gets a couple of late touchdowns to come back and win, and that puts Bandy's over 500. They have a really good quarterback. Lost a couple of close games early. West Iredell got out of the gate kind of hot. That non-conference schedule was a little bit more manageable for them, but they've lost some games as they get into conference. But a big win for Bandy's. That probably puts them maybe hosting a home playoff game in the first round, with depending on how everything shakes out with the RPIs. I'll tell you another surprise team, and we said this on our broadcast tonight, Newton Conover. Nobody's really talked about Newton Conover. The Red Devils with their win tonight, 7-2, 5-2 overall. They beat Fred T. Ford tonight, and Fred T. Ford is not that great of a team, but again, for Newton Conover, where they've been the last couple of years, but to get win number 7 tonight, that's huge for that program.
What are you guys looking forward to the most in Week 11? It's going to be a chaotic final week of the season. And where do you guys plan on going?
Well, we were talking about that. It's Halloween, and we came into my house tonight to do this, and I've got the pumpkin jack-o'-lantern sitting out there. I said, maybe we should just broadcast from my front porch and hand out candy. Because really in our area next week, there's some games that you could hype up and say, well, maybe playoff potential. Originally on our schedule, we were going to have West Caldwell and Highbright, and it's been a while since that traditional rivalry, black and blue, that they've played the last week of the season. But Highbright's going to dominate that game. You don't really want to do that. We reset our schedule a couple of weeks ago, right when the Northwestern 6A, 7A conference schedule was getting underway, and we thought McDowell was going to be really good. So we said, okay, we'll switch and do McDowell and Freedom. But here's McDowell. They've fallen on hard times now. And so we don't know where to put our heads together. South Caldwell, Alexander Central over in Taylorsville, two teams that are at the bottom of the standings, but a playoff spot on the line. One of those teams, if not both, could get into the playoffs depending on how things shake out. So we don't know where we'll be. We right now we're scheduled to be at Freedom for McDowell and Freedom, but we'll get with the suits tomorrow and see where we're at. But I think the main thing around here for teams like Watauga, High Brighton, East Rutherford, Hickory. Hickory was off tonight. Just take care of business. Don't get anybody hurt. You know you've got that bye week coming up before your playoff push begins. So I think that's the big thing next week is if you're coaching for some of these teams, you have some games that you feel like you're going to win. It's just the main thing is to keep everybody healthy.
Wherever the wind takes you guys next week, we'll be glad to have you join us again here on the High School OT postgame show. Again, that's Jeff Link and David Jones from Scoreboard Radio. They had St. Stephen's big win over South Caldwell tonight. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. See you guys next week.
We move on here on the High School OT postgame show and bring in Tim Hauer from Coastal Preps. Tim was down at the Coast tonight as Laney and New Hanover tangled in a big conference matchup. And Tim, you had a thriller. It was back and forth, but in the end, it seemed like the Buccaneers kind of rode some of its positive momentum that it found last week in its matchup with Hoggard.
Yeah, it really was. It was a good game. I thought both offenses played extremely well. The numbers are very close. It was like 300 and let me see what I got right here. 336 yards for New Hanover, 343 yards for Laney. So both offenses putting up good numbers. But yeah, like you said, it was Laney that eventually got the win. A couple late touchdowns from Jeremiah. Excuse me. I can't think of his last name right now. Jeremiah had 2 rushing touchdowns at the end of the game to kind of give Laney that win. But, yeah, I talked to Coach Brooks afterwards and said, at this point in the season, you don't love moral victories, but, the way they did play last week against Hoggard, they were competitive in that game. And, outside of a couple penalties that cost them some points and just some inability to capitalize on short fields, if they capitalize 1 or 2 of those drives, it's a whole different ballgame. Maybe it's 21-21 at one point, and then Hoggard's really sweating it out. But a good win. They've got North Brunswick next week, which is another winnable game. Could go into the playoffs at 6-4, having won 4 or 5 games. Do I think they're a team that is going to make a huge deep playoff run in the 8A? No, but could they surprise a team in the first round? Absolutely.
Hoggard defeating North Brunswick 35-13 tonight. That's back-to-back weeks where it's not your stereotypical Hoggard score. And again, we've talked about this time and time again. The Vikings aren't a team that is going to run up the score on you or blow you out. But is there anything to look into with some of those results, or is it just the Vikings kind of making sure they just take care of what's in front of them and prep for what is going to be a playoff run in about 2 or 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think at this point in the season, you want to be building, right? And I don't know that Hoggard necessarily is doing that. Still getting the wins, which is ultimately the most important thing. But, some turnovers the last couple weeks, I think they cleaned that up a little bit tonight. But I was just looking at their numbers. They didn't rush great tonight. Only had, it's still 24 for 129, but you feel like, that number should probably be closer to 170, maybe 200. Now they did throw for 246. So obviously, threw the ball well tonight, but still some things that I think Hoggard wants to improve upon, in order to do what they ultimately want to do, which is play for a 7A state title. So, maybe that's a scary thing for the rest of 8A is that Hoggard's not playing at its best and still coming up with 22 point wins. Hard to complain, but I do think Hoggard is maybe better than what they've shown the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's hard to scoff at a 3-score win. Speaking of 3-score wins, we were talking a lot about this Pender East Duplin game. Obviously, Pender coming in unbeaten. This was this marquee matchup for them. East Duplin lays it on them 38-18 tonight. Thoughts on that result?
Yeah, a little surprised. Maybe not necessarily at the outcome, but at the deficit. I did think Pender could put up a good fight there. But look, it's a team that I think has overachieved already up to this point. I don't know that many people thought that they would be, 8-0 going into this game. So, I hate to say that maybe they needed a little bit of, slice of humble pie, but maybe they were feeling really good about themselves. And, a loss, I don't think is going to kill – this loss isn't going to kill their RPI by any means. I mean, they're still going to be a very high seed in the 3A playoffs. So maybe this is a learning lesson for, for Tom Eanes, for his team that, you can't just walk out there with a Pender jersey on and teams are going to lay down for you. I mean, you're going to have to play a really good brand of football, and if you don't, this is what can happen. So they do. The good thing, I think, is you get a week to bounce back, right? This isn't going right into the playoffs. So you get a bounce back week against Trask next week. Their rival should be able to take care of business pretty handily in that one. Then you go into the playoffs sitting at 9-1. If you would have told, I think, anybody in Burgal, especially Coach Eanes, you're going into the 3A playoffs at 9-1. Before the season, he would have gladly taken that. So, a tough loss, but not anything that's gonna set them back tremendously in the long run.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, Pender entering this game tonight 8-1, but 3 of those 8 victories were by 1 score. They had early in the year, they had the Red Springs where I think they won by 8. They had the Wallace Rose Hill, that like epic double overtime win there. And then even Clinton, I believe they beat Clinton in a shootout. It was like 50-45, 5-point game in that one. So, yeah, I think you build that confidence and you kind of build that swagger when you're winning those close games and you're coming out on top every time. But there's a theme where I think sometimes you see teams who make big playoff runs drop a game late in the season, and then they look back a month down the road and say, man, we really did need that game to get us to where we're at now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think this is the end of the world. I think this actually gets the kids' attentions, right? Because you're winning week in and week out. Maybe the message from Coach Eanes is kind of falling on deaf ears, Sure, Coach. Yeah, we know we have to come out and play, but
we're
We're good. We're good. I mean, we're beating everybody. Now, this week's message, Coach Eanes goes, I tried to tell you guys, if you didn't bring it, this was going to happen. So now, are you ready to really listen and buy in? So, yeah, I don't feel any differently really about Pender after that result than I did before. I think they're a good football team. And it's just going to come down to matchups and stuff like that in the 3A playoffs. But I still think they're one of the teams that can certainly compete.
Well, that is Tim Hauer of Coastal Preps. He had Laney's victory over New Hanover tonight down in Wilmington. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Yeah, we'll talk to you next week, Evan.
See you. Move on here on the HighSchoolOT postgame show. Let's go with some scores. I'm going to bring in Joel Bryant, and we're going to go over some scores from across the area. Before we dive into those, Joel, anything that has caught your attention as you continue to kind of download and digest games across the state?
Yeah, I have a few more notes from earlier. We had Alexander Chapman Evans on earlier. He had the pick 6 on for Enloe to beat Corinth Holders 28-22. This is Enloe's first back-to-back seasons with winning records since 1973 to 1974. So Enloe's they've had these moments where they've kind of broken out and they've gone this winning season, right? But this is the first time since 73 to 74 that they've had back-to-back winning seasons. It's almost as old as my dad right there. So that's a long time. So good job to Coach Clark and them for doing that. I have a couple other notes tonight that I was jotting down as we went along. Charlotte Christian and Providence, they were tied at 20 in that game, but Providence Day scored 26 unanswered to beat Charlotte Christian 46-20.
Battle of Sardis Road.
Yeah, it's crazy. For anyone that hasn't been, it's crazy how close those two schools are. One day, Evan and I had an assignment where we were doing like recruiting interviews there or something, some sort of like that. And we were going between Providence Day and Charlotte Christian. It was like right down the road. It's wild how close they are.
You drive
like literally
for 30
you
seconds
probably,
and you make a left.
You're probably like someone who's got like a really good throwing arm, or probably throw like a ball or something to hit the other school from there. It's very close there. Pinecrest was losing to Hoke, Evan, 23-20 in the third quarter. Pinecrest comes back to win 26-23. They improved to 8-1. Pinecrest has won 8 straight games since that big loss to Cleveland to start the year. If kind of like anytime you lose like that, so big to start the season, you're kind of like written off. People kind of forget about you. But Pinecrest, they've been slowly doing it. They're 8-1 now. Obviously tonight they probably would want to play better than that against Hope, but they'll take the win. Other notes here, we mentioned the East Rutherford game, so they scored 39 unanswered to beat.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy. For those who don't know, the coach at Eastsburg who was beating East Rutherford tonight, that's Chris Cogdell. He used to be the coach at Chase, and Chase and East Rutherford are rivals there. So I'm sure Coach Cogdell had some ideas for that East Rutherford team tonight, and they clearly started out well in that game. In the Northern 6A, 7A, Evan, both Heritage and Wake Forest victorious tonight. Wake Forest beat Franklinton 23-7. Heritage beat Knightdale 32-23. That sets up a conference championship game next week. Evan, Wake Forest technically has they've clinched a co-conference championship. Heritage has a chance to win next week at Wake Forest and have a co-conference championship for themselves. If Wake Forest beats Heritage next week, there'll be an outright championship for Wake Forest. They've done a great job since Coach Lucas has come back from that terrible tragedy. Coach Lucas has come back in conference play, and they've won every game so far. So those are some notes I've been jotting down throughout the night here.
Yeah, you had that note earlier in the week about how Wake Forest has found success since Reggie Lucas has joined them back in the sideline. What a great story there about how they've kind of rallied behind their coach and his family and been able to make this run that they've made. But it's also good to see just for the community there in Wake Forest that there's a meaningful Wake Forest Heritage game. Obviously, the Huskies got the big win over Wake Forest a couple of years ago that had
it was close last year too.
It snapped that winless streak, and then last year, I believe it was a game-winning field goal or something of that nature.
Right.
It came down to the end, but I mean, we remember in the 2010s, like there were those epic conference championship type battles between Heritage and Wake Forest, and so while maybe not flooded with ACC and state championship aspirations like it was a decade ago,
well,
this
that's
is
exactly
still a meaningful game.
That's exactly the point. These are two teams that they were at the top. In the late 2010s, they were the ones running those conferences and whatnot. Since then, they've been passed by Millbrook and Rollsville. But now they're in a new conference and realignment, the new Northern 6, 6A, 7A. They don't have Millbrook and Rollsville in the conference anymore. So now they have an opportunity to be competitive again in terms of fighting for a conference championship. I did have another couple notes here I found in my notes if you want me to go through them. Land Farmer, the Shelby quarterback, breaks the all-time Cleveland County passing record.
Wow.
Which is hard to do because there's been a lot of great quarterbacks come out of Cleveland County. He passed it with 8,300 and 15 yards tonight in their win. It's pretty good company that he's in there, becoming the number one all time, and that's pretty good.
Anytime you can do something historic in Cleveland County football, if you have not been down to Cleveland County to catch one of those games, whether it be Crest, Kings Mountain, Shelby, all of that, it's the closest thing North Carolina has to Texas high school football. It's not Texas high school football in terms of experience.
We got caught up. We were doing something down there. We got caught up in a what was it, a pep rally at Crest?
Crest.
It was wild.
It
was wild. That was the best pep rally I've been to. So they do it a little differently down there in Cleveland County. Another kind of concerning start tonight was Forest Hills was losing to Anson 6-0 going into the fourth quarter. Forest Hills is a team with a much better record than Anson, but Forest Hills managed to come back in that fourth quarter. They win it 14-12, setting up presumably, I believe they're setting up a game against Monroe. Actually, let me double check that for you. That's how they've been doing in the past. Let me double check for you. Evan, I do want to get into the Huff Myers Park game. You were paying attention to that on the stream?
Yeah, so Huff's Ethan Royal throws for 3 touchdowns tonight. Jameer Anderson, who entered tonight's top 10 battle with no touchdown catches, grabs 2, and he grabs the 2 most important ones. The first one, and then the second one that comes with 9:37 to go in the fourth quarter, and that extends the lead from 7-6 to 14-6, and it starts this run of 3 touchdowns in the final 9 minutes where they go and just take off and win 28-6 in that one. But big win there for Huff.
Yeah, I was doing I did Adam's show this week, and he's asking about the 8-8 West, and I said it's Huff in West Charlotte. I think right now those are teams that have kind of proven to be the dominant forces out there. And I said Myers Park is a team that they have the star power, right? So they have the 5-star edge rusher, they have Clint Porter's the Sons, they had the star power, but I wasn't sure if they had the overall depth from like 5 to 22 that Huff and West Charlotte have. And I think that might have happened tonight, where the kind of like the ancillary characters on Huff end up making the plays later in the game to kind of make the difference between what the Stars are doing throughout the game.
Another game we were kind of closely monitoring tonight, Joel, was actually down in the Sandhills and in Cumberland County between Cape Fear and Terry Sanford. That was a very highly anticipated game there. The Colts end up kind of mashing their foot on the gas. They win 50-35, but that was a close game for a while.
Yeah, our guy Cookie was down there,
Yep.
and Terry Sanford was winning. Then all of a sudden, the huge third quarter for Cape Fear. They entered the third quarter, I believe, losing to Terry Sanford by a couple of scores. They leave it up by a couple of scores. So that third quarter, I want to know what happened in that third quarter for Cape Fear, Coach Thomas and company. This Terry Sanford team, they started out the year with a big win over 71st. They looked good in other big wins they've had this season. It's interesting that they've kind of like a little bit tailed off here a little bit. And Cape Fear, it seemed that we've kind of, stopped thinking about, frankly, this season, getting hot at the right time. So, Cookie called that last week. He said, Cape Fear looked good last week. It was against kind of a weaker competition, but he called it last week. The Cape Fear is kind of rounding into form here.
One last result here before we kind of close up on the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. Clayton 34, Garner 22. The game that we've all been waiting for next Friday night as Clayton and Cleveland get together again. We've felt from the beginning if there was ever a Comets team that could snap the curse against Cleveland, it could be this one. But the Rams have just been this well-oiled machine that keeps on rolling. But the last two meetings, Joel, have been decided by a combined 4 points. As you remember, 2 years ago, Cleveland makes the leaping grab in the back of the end zone as on a Hail Mary as time expires. And then last year it was a 2-point shootout. Is this the year Clayton does it? What are your expectations for next Friday night with Clayton and Cleveland getting together?
I don't know. I can tell you it's going
know.
to be a close game. There's going to be some crazy hijinks happening in that game next week. It would be crazy if it did end on kind of such a last minute kind of deal like it had been doing, because that normally doesn't happen 3 straight times. So my prediction I feel like whoever's going to win that game next week between Clayton and Cleveland, I think that they might be a situation where they're kind of pulling away here with a couple of scores here in the fourth quarter, because it's just not likely to end games like that so many times in a row. So whoever wins that game, I think they're going to be pulling away in the fourth quarter. I'm going to call it now.
Well, we were talking about that Cape Fear Terry Sanford game just a couple of seconds ago. You mentioned James Moore from the Fayetteville Observer was there. He's going to join us. Let's bring him in now here to the postgame show. Crazy game, huh? Cape Fear comes all the way back and creates some separation.
So, Cookie, what happened in that third quarter? I saw you posting about it. What happened in that third quarter?
What didn't happen in the third quarter? I think, first of all, Ty Phillips, he exploded. 6 touchdowns, 3 in each half. It was a rivalry, a crosstown rivalry, the biggest rivalry in Cumberland County. Terry Sanford and Cape Fear, they went at it the entire game, and I think the refs finally started to get involved, and there was a little shoving, pushing and shoving. Then at some point there were fists thrown. Player got ejected. So fumes were fuming throughout that third quarter, and I think Terry Sanford started to really feel Cape Fear and the intensity they brought into this game. To the second half, I should say, because it was just Cape Fear was lights out. I've never seen a complete second half like they put together, but it was amazing.
So I was kind of telling Evan before we got you on here, these teams have kind of gone in opposite directions, I guess. So, Terry Sanford has that really amazing start with a win over 71st, and they just start so well. And then, Cape Fear had that loss to Jack Britt. I think it was like a 30-point loss to Jack Britt earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm.
And, when that happens, you kind of write them off in your mind a little bit, and you start forgetting about them a little bit. And lo and behold, they're slowly picking up wins. They suddenly pick up a forfeit win over 71st, which changes their record and helps their RPI. And all of a sudden, they are 8-1 right now. And Terry Sanford has dropped to, I believe, 6-3. What do you make of kind of the departing kind of trends here for both teams?
Well, I think the difference maker really is, and I think I spoke about this last Friday, the difference maker, especially for Cape Fear, is Ty Phillips. And Coach James Thomas for Cape Fear, he talked about tonight how how Phillips his confidence level is an X factor for the entire team. When he plays and he's really feeling himself when he's on the field, that's a confidence booster for the entire team. And obviously 6 touchdowns tonight, and I think probably around 300 yards or so. I don't have the totals yet, but I mean that's a big difference maker. And I think in those few games, when you have a running back, exactly. When you have a star running back who scores
you hear
6
it and you're like,
touchdowns,
yeah, but then it sets in with you a little bit more like 6 touchdowns. Like, oh my gosh.
Exactly. From a junior, he's not even a senior, and I mean, he's just really making his mark in the state right now. And I think he made a statement tonight. And as Cape Fear, someone who missed out on having him the first 5 or so games, I mean, that was really a big difference maker for them.
So Ty Phillips is one of these guys who his recruitment kind of exploded right before the production was really there. And it's because he ran so fast at one of these camps. He ran I think he ran like a 4.3, a legit 4.3, maybe even faster
4.3
than that. Yeah, he ran a 4.3 at one of the camps. And so when that happens, I always kind of wonder, like, okay, like, are we going to see it like really manifest on the field? And I think that's happening this year. He's really, putting all of it together, I think, and that's scary. That's terrifying. I do want to ask you this, and speaking of teams that are hot, so this sets up a game next week for Cape Fear at Scotland. They're both 4-0 in this new conference here. Scotland, of course, had that win over Terry Sanford. So it's going to be the Tri-County 6A, 7A Conference Championship. After seeing Cape Fear tonight, do you think that they have a good chance of winning next week in Scotland?
I do. Although I do see a lot of similarities in both teams, I do think what they got talked about last week as well is Cape Fear's defense and how they all swarm to the ball. I mean, at any given play, you're bound to see at least 5 or 6 defenders at the ball for Cape Fear. And I think that's the only thing that I didn't see with Scotland when they played Terry Sanford. Scotland allows points. Cape Fear doesn't allow points, and that's really the bottom line. I mean, they know how to keep teams off the scoreboard, and they showed that tonight in that second half.
So obviously that's gonna be a big game in that one next week. Any other games that you're gonna look forward to next week?
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to 71st and Southview. I think that'll be a pretty good game. I have 71st, obviously, but I do think that'll be a really good game to see. I mean, even though Southview took the loss tonight as a heartbreaker.
Just by a point, correct? It was a point.
Yeah, by a point, 27-26 to St. Paul's. And I mean, but I still do think that'll be a good matchup.
Yeah, so 71st clinches a co-conference championship with the results tonight. And Southview could still force one by winning against 71st next week. So that'll be fascinating as well. Awesome. Well, Cookie, I appreciate the time. It gives me a busy few days and a busy week for us. We got volleyball stuff going on. Soccer playoffs coming up next week, football playoffs coming up next week, and basketball season starts on Tuesday, first day of tryouts and everything. So it's going to be a busy week. Where can people find your work, and what can they expect from you this upcoming week?
You can check out the Fayetteville Observer, and if Grade Creek pull off a win tomorrow, they'll be in the regionals for the first time in school history. So that'll be really big, and you can definitely catch me at regionals and state championships next week.
It's going to be exciting. Well, Cookie, appreciate it, man, and best luck with your coverage next week.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Well, Evan.
Yeah. What a week.
Crazy night.
Crazy night. We talked about it, I think it was before last week's games began, but there hadn't been too many upsets across the state or these like crazy.
Yeah, we kind of spoke into existence.
Yeah, it's starting to develop here, and I think next week's going to be really good as well. Right as
Do you want to run through the out-of-state teams before we go here?
Yeah. Let's take a look at some teams that came in to tonight's action. Again, 22 teams entered tonight undefeated in the state. Arundel Parrott defeats Cary Christian. That was the state's lone undefeated matchup, so that's a big win there in 8-man football as Parrott gets the win 52-38. We mentioned Ashbrook. They make the goal line stand at the 1 to remain unbeaten against Crest. Beargrass Charter beats Columbia tonight 60-6. Brevard beats Tuscolas 36-3. Cary's undefeated run comes to an end. They lose 42-0 against Middle Creek. Cleveland remains undefeated, 62-6 over Smithfield Selma. Grimsley has the big second half to beat Dudley, 42-14. High Point Christian, they keep on rolling, 42-0 against Hickory Grove Christian. Hoggard, 35-13 over North Brunswick. We discussed that a little bit with Tim Hauer when he joined us. Huff gets the win over Myers Park, 28-6. Jacksonville beats Conley, 41-24. Jordan shutting out Green Level, 62-0. Kip Pride, a very close game that they had to come from behind to win against Warren County tonight, 30-28, the final score in that one. Bunn defeating Lewisburg tonight, 34-19, a huge win for the Wildcats. That hands Lewisburg its first loss of the season. Millbrook 55-0 over Wakefield Northside. Pinetown 35-0 over Southside. East Duplin defeating Pender tonight 38-18. We talked to Tim Hauer about that one as well. Providence Day defeating Charlotte Christian. Joel mentioned that the Chargers ran away late with a 46-20 win there in the Battle of Sardis Road. South Davidson 48-6 over Chatham Central. Tarboro 41-0 against Aiden Grifton. And Watauga 55-21 against McDowell. Joel, that means Week 11 of the high school football season will feature 18 teams that are undefeated this season.
Yeah, it's they're slowly chopping down each week here. I think we started doing this a few weeks ago, and we had 40 something, and now we're down to 18. It looks like, and so I mean maybe that's a testament to kind of the new conferences. I believe at this point last year we had more undefeated teams than this, so maybe it's a testament to the new conferences. Maybe they're more competitive this year. But it's interesting, a lot of these teams it's kind of dicey for them. I know that the Kip Pride Warren County game, Warren County was up that game. I believe they were up a couple scores, and Kip Pride comes back to win. Northside Pinetown, they were only up 7 at halftime. They were only up 7 over Southside at halftime, and they pull away in the second half there. Millbrook Wakefield is probably not that way. But yeah, a lot of these games were probably a little bit closer than we had thought. Maybe the pressure's kind of getting to them a little bit. But of course, it's hard to win so many games in a row. And anytime, I have to credit all these coaches that are doing this, is anytime you keep the kids focused for that long, kind of like we were talking about with Tim there, where the coach, these players, they start feeling themselves a bit. These are teenagers, they're cocky, they're confident, and they keep winning and winning and winning. It's hard to keep them kind of dialed in and on things that the little things they're supposed to be doing. So it's a credit to all these coaches to have all these teams still on being this point in the season. And of course, next week is going to be a big test for them again. Then we'll be in the playoffs, and I can't wait to see the playoffs this year.
Well, Joel, just like winning all of these big games, preventing underage drinking, it takes a lot of teamwork. Parents and teens, you can visit talkitoutnc.org. Again, talkitoutnc.org, and you can get the resources to start the conversation about the risks that are associated with underage drinking. Join Talk It Out NC to cheer on safe and smart choices. That'll do it for this week's edition of the High School OT postgame show presented by Talk It Out NC. We will join you remotely, I believe, next week because it's going to be chaotic. I'll probably be at the Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum on the campus of Wake Forest out in Winston-Salem as volleyball wraps up the first day of state titles. But Joel and I will bring you the postgame show next Friday night for the final week of the regular season. It blew by in an instant. But Halloween night, we will have the High School OT postgame show and break down some of the big results from those games. For Evan Moesta, Joel Bryant, J. Mike, who was out in Sanford tonight, and the rest of this crew at High School OT, we wish you a happy weekend. Lots of state championships in store. And again, get your scores into Max Preps. Wake up first thing in the morning, and Joel will have playoff projections for you. Also, start thinking about questions you have about playoff projections. That guy right there you see on the screen to the left of me, nobody does it better than Joel when it comes to playoff projections. He kind of knows the ins and outs of it. So if you're looking at why your team is seeded in a certain spot or how the RPI works and how this new playoff format kind of the intricacies of it, hit us up on social media. Send us an email, highschoolot@wrl.com. There's lots of different ways that you're going to be able to kind of reach out and ask some questions about this seeding process, because a week from now, we're going to be right on the doorstep of receiving brackets, whether they come out Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We'll see what the NCHSA does, but in the next 10 days, we will be in possession of NCHSAA football brackets for this fall. Again, we thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the High School OT postgame show, and we'll see you next Friday.
Don't fall for the myths. Get the facts about underage drinking.
Myth. Teens bounce back fast, and teenage athletes can perform just fine after a night of drinking alcohol. The fact is, alcohol can hinder athletic performance for up to 3 days, delaying recovery and causing long-term issues with muscle loss and weakness. But don't just take it from me.
Choosing not to drink as an underage athlete has really helped me significantly. I've been able to focus, keep my priorities straight, and it's helped me separate myself from, many other people.
Get more facts at talkitoutnc.org.